Thank you all so much for tuning in today. I'm really excited to dive into this office hours for us all to learn about the top 10 do's and don'ts of email marketing. So a core goal of Dreamers and Doers is to amplify you and your journeys, and intimate educational sessions like today's, filled with insights thanks to your fellow members, are the perfect opportunity for us all to up-level together. So before we officially begin, I want to share a bit of background information on our esteemed expert. Rebekah is the founder and creative director of Miel Design Studio, a creative agency that works with B Corps, nonprofits, and other purpose-driven organizations. With 16 years of experience working with brands like Burt, Save the Children, Duke University, and Jada Pinkett Smith's Don't Sell Bodies, she specializes in organizing chaos for changemakers. I love that. So with that, I will hand it over to you, Rebekah. We are so excited to learn from your expertise today. We know how valuable your time is, and we're so grateful to you for investing in the Dreamers and Doers Collective in this way. And a bit of housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll be keeping an eye on the chat and doing questions throughout the presentation, as well as a Q&A session at the end. So yeah, with that, I will hand it over to you, Rebekah.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and I love getting to hear wins at the beginning of a presentation, so that was great. And also thank you to Geisha and Hannah for asking me to speak about email marketing. I love talking about email marketing. I have worked on email marketing for almost 20 years at this point, and there are so many ins and outs, and I think it is a tool that is sometimes under leveraged. So I love getting to talk about all of those details. So we will get to the 10 do's and don'ts, but I also wanted to give like a broader view in sort of how we recommend that clients handle their annual email marketing cycle as well, just to offer a bit more value in this talk too. But thanks to everybody for taking your, well, in some cases, lunch hour to learn about email marketing. And like Hannah said, if you have questions, just drop them in the chat, but I do have time at the end for questions as well. So to start with, what is email marketing and why is it important? If you're here, you know that it's important or you have an interest in it. Actually, I would love to see in the chat too, if you could tell me, do you use email marketing now? And if yes, what software tool do you use for email marketing? But email marketing helps you stay in direct contact with your audience. We all know that with social media, we're often beholden to the whims of an algorithm or the social media company itself. With email marketing, you are directly connected to your audience. And if you create compelling content, your audience will open your emails. It's also fairly easy to measure. Some of that is changing in this year, but you know exactly who is opening it, when they're opening, and what they click. There's not a lot of social media or other marketing tools that are going to allow you to know exactly who opened what and when, and if you see a pattern in the data, why. And also it's affordable. The cost per send for email marketing is fairly low when you look at conversions. So there's some products that are free to start up with, and then others that you pay per list or send. So it is a good entry point for marketing as well. So I'm going to talk first about how you create effective and engaging email marketing. Then I'm going to go into some case studies, our email cycle, and then the do's and don'ts. So the four main things that I think about when we're talking about creating effective email marketing is, one, know your audience. Having a big list is great, but it isn't great if you don't know your audience. Knowing who's on your audience and what you're saying and what they want is always more important than having tens of thousands of subscribers. Listen to your data. There's lots of ways to pull data from email marketing. Have a strategy, makes it a lot less stressful, and stop the gimmicks. So first, with know your audience, you really need to know who you're talking to. Are you, and this also depends on where you're pulling your list from. If you are building a list from resource downloads on social media, where that channel is will change who your audience is and what they will want in return. Are those clients that are going to convert, or are those just folks who are interested in education? So that would shift as to whether or not you're doing a sales email versus an educational email. Or are you remarketing to current clients, which means they already are aware of your brand. So maybe you're trying to up-level them. One of the nice things about knowing the data in email marketing, it means you can track and tag your audience as well based on how they've subscribed, what they've clicked on, and where they are in their journey. Which is, brings me to the next point. What is the data and what are they looking for? I think sometimes the initial, when you're first starting out with email marketing, the initial idea is to share the work you've done and sell. In my experience, paying attention to what clients want to be educated about, either about your brand or the field you're in, and then secondarily selling means that they will on average open more emails and be more engaged with your content, which long-term, you want to end up in that general tab in Gmail, not the promotions folder. So what value are you adding through email? What are they looking for, instead of just selling to the client as well? Also have a strategy. Typically, we plan, I say we, although we do this so much for clients, it's like, what is it, the cobbler's kids don't have shoes? Like, we do this so much for clients, we don't always plan all of our strategy well. So I totally empathize with the fact that this piece is difficult, but we try and plan for our clients. We plan 6 to 12 months of content. We do a content planning sprint. We figure out what the topics are for each month. We use Airtable to organize that content, and it can be overwhelming, but doing it in 1 to 2 buckets during a year means that it feels less overwhelming than sitting down on the 1st or the 30th of every month being like, what am I going to say now? Unless writing is just intuitive to you, but I think that's often not. And the last one is stop the gimmicks. Ditch the clickbait. You don't need a last minute offer or this is going away or any of that with your subject line. There are creative and compelling ways to get folks to open emails, but really you want your readers to trust your content and know that it's authentic, rather than having a series of subject lines that seem immediate or tricky, or putting RE in front of it or anything like that. Having consistent and authentic content means that you will have higher engagement rather than trying to trick your reader into reading your email. And oftentimes small changes make big results. So because email marketing is the timeline is years, it's not days or hours. The change in measuring data is usually month after month, because you're not sending, we typically recommend not sending more than 3 to 4 emails to your audience, unless it's very, very segmented, not sending more than 3 to 4 emails a month to your audience. So that means the data over time is going to tell a bigger story, but small changes in emails can lead to big results. So I'm going to show a few examples of design changes that we did that helped clients, and also talk a little bit about how the time it takes to measure these results as well. So this was a client that we worked for called Student Action with Farm Workers. They're old, I don't know if you can see my arrow, maybe you can. Their old email is on the left, and they were just saying that there was not much engagement, opens, folks weren't clicking through, but a lot of this was that the content wasn't very clear, where there was a button, and a lot of it was not, like, there weren't images in terms of how this was organized, and there was like a summary at the top instead of getting right into the content above the fold. So we redesigned it to the one on the right where there is really clear calls to action. All of this, the goal with any email is to move the reader to your website, or to a landing page if you have a specific offer. So having really clear buttons, call to action, and really clear space delineation and hierarchy in your email helps a reader scan this much more quickly on the right than on the left. This is another example of there just being a lot of text and extra headers at the top, just cleaning this up to simplify it at the top and going right into a story. These emails were often, so this is the Pauli Murray Center in Durham, North Carolina. A lot of these emails were letters that were just in the email, but again, we wanted to drive that traffic to the website. So we would have an intro to the letter and then a learn more button that would go to a blog post on the website. And then underneath this, just organizing information in a clear hierarchy and pattern so that a reader could skim it quickly. And this is a redesign for Duke. A lot of the emails that they send out, so this is for Duke alumni, are event-based. So thinking about how the goal is to register for an event. So being really clear about where the title, the time, and the register button is, that it's you can learn more about the event, but the register buttons, the call to action is very clear, and that it's just simplified in a scroll in the hierarchy as well. And I want to get a little bit more in depth with a client that we manage. We do all of their marketing, but specifically their email marketing. And this is Leaf and Limb. They are a tree care company in Raleigh, North Carolina. They do tree care and preservation. They also have a nursery where they grow native trees and some other projects that they're working on as well. And the goal with this client has always been to educate. So yes, they're a service and they are internally the end goal is sales, but for the newsletter, it was education. So we now have 2 consistent emails that go out every month, and all of them are based on education. So step 1 is to get folks to go outside and learn about one tree in their yard. Like that's their entry to this journey, is knowing that there's a tree, maybe knowing what kind of tree it is. So creating these newsletters that educate about all sorts of things related to tree care and local ecosystems means that the education piece is always at the forefront. And we use this annual cycle of email marketing to manage these newsletters every month. So the first one is content planning. I don't know why it's on content creation, but yeah, content planning. So we create content for every newsletter at least 3 months ahead. We have a video in each. This newsletter in particular is fairly high production value because there's a video. So you might not need 3 months lead time for a newsletter, but we already have the content planning figured out 6 to 12 months before. And then each month we also have 2 to 3 articles that we're writing custom to match that video, all of which again link back to the website. So we use Airtable for content planning. We use this for both articles, newsletters, and social media as well. So we'll upload assets and captions. And this is really, the last few years have been unusual, to say the least, and that things are always moving. Sometimes, we live in the South. This talk actually was supposed to happen when the hurricane was coming through a couple of months ago. So sometimes we have something planned that is not appropriate to send out in August, or there's some other news event that is happening. So this is a loose rubric for the content that we're going to plan, but we always have extra like future pieces, evergreen content that we can move around. So if there is a last minute change, it doesn't ever feel like an emergency. For content planning, we use this tool that is what are people searching for? I have the link later on in resources. I think you can use this maybe 2 or 3 times a day or week to search for. This is literally what people are searching for on Google right now. So on the left, I searched for what is email marketing, and it came up with all of these different things. So where to use email marketing? Is it free? How can I use email marketing for business? So those are topics that I would pull from if I was going to create a newsletter about email marketing. On the right-hand side, I searched for tree, and it's what everybody's searching for right now about related to trees, like what trees in my garden, will tree roots grow back, etc. So we often have a fairly long list of content topics that we want to talk about, but we can use this both for new content or also to verify content. It's also helpful for keywords, like, you know, maybe somebody refers to a plant as a bush and actually people are searching for shrub. Knowing what people are searching for and how they're talking about it is important as well. So after we plan our content and create our content, we always analyze the data. Some of this has changed this year. So if anybody runs email marketing campaigns right now, they've probably noticed that their click-throughs have gone down. And that has to do with like a shocking amount, like probably 10 to 20%. That has to do with Apple's data privacy laws. My assumption is that that has to do with Apple's data privacy laws. So you can know who opens an email, but you can't track them from email to another thing. So I would pay attention to open rates are still good metrics, especially if you're doing it year over year. Any data is only as good as how much data you have. So open rates year over year, month after month. And also, you can sort of pay attention to click-through rates as to like what people seem to be most interested in, but the number itself isn't as important anymore. I would track web traffic. How many people on the day you send, you'll see a spike in your web traffic. So track that over time as well. We used to use A/B tests for data, but we actually don't do that anymore. Also, if I'm using any terms that you're like, what is that? Just let me know. I'm happy to define it. We used to use A/B testing of subject lines to test which one was going to be more effective. We stopped doing that because we weren't getting enough clear data from those tests. So instead, we test it through the send. We'll do a resend with a new subject line. So if it doesn't catch the reader the first time, we'll do a resend for those who haven't opened with a new subject line. And then we just analyze which of those two is more effective and really just refine our subject lines. We're not using it to say definitively, yes, this works and this doesn't. So again, looking at the newsletter, how does it impact website traffic? So you can see all of these little spikes. This was over 3 years. All of these little spikes are the days that we sent out a newsletter, and it is really clear that if you were driving educational content to a website that is related to the service or product that you offer, clients are definitely going to click through as well. The other piece that's important, so I was talking about knowing your audience, also making sure that you have an active list. So each spring, I pull a segment of users who haven't opened emails in the last 6 months, and they go to a separate list in the newsletter. Every time we send a new newsletter or a new email, I separately send to those, I call them the non-openers list, and I just monitor, like, did they open an email? Then I'll move them back to the openers list. And after like 6 to 12 months of being on that list, I'll send them an email that says, hey, do you want to keep getting emails? If yes, click, then I know that they've clicked or opened. If not, then I'll take them off the list, because it doesn't benefit you to have subscribers on your list that aren't reading your email, even if, you know, there is a lot of focus on having a certain number of subscribers to your email list, but it really doesn't benefit you if they're not using it, and it costs you in the end as well. Also, segmenting lists as well. This often if you're doing a broad educational email, like a monthly newsletter, you often send them to all of your segments, but segmenting based on interest is helpful for conversions or sales or special events, things like that. You can also create a secondary newsletter. I typically try to have a really formal monthly newsletter that is always the same template, always the same like high level, high quality researched content. But this secondary newsletter is a bit more informal. It is like a dispatch from the field. It is a letter written by one of the crew or ops members that is just saying, this is what we're seeing in our yards or on our trees right now. It doesn't have to be as edited. It should take less time, but it gives your audience other ways to enter into your content as well. And then the last step is automation. There's a lot of discussion about automation in email right now, and I think sometimes it can be used to overcomplicate things. I don't know about you, but I don't love getting even like 5 segment, like clearly automated intro. Like after I sign up for a newsletter, I get 5 canned emails. That's not my favorite, but I think there are ways to use automation to keep your audience engaged that chooses to opt into that automation as well. So for this client, after we had created content for, I think, 2 or 3 years, we realized that we have essentially a series of content. So we repackaged it into what is really a class about tree care. We call it Treecologist 101. And it is the exact same content that we have sent out previously to the clients. They've already gotten all of these, but I think this series has like a 75% open rate because they're opting into it, but it is the same amount of content. And they know that they're getting it every 2 weeks, and when they finish, they get a certificate and a t-shirt. But it didn't really take, we have to keep this updated, but it didn't take that much work. We weren't creating all this content from scratch. We had it, we're just repurposing it, and it's often the same audience who's already getting the newsletter as well. I should also say, with the other newsletters that we send with this client, we typically have 50 to 70% open rate and a pretty high and consistent click-through rate as well. Because of this process, and because we have built, there's about 20,000 people on this list, which is great for an like a company that only has a certain regional reach. Because we've cultivated this audience that is really listening, we rarely send out sales emails, but this past year we sent a sales email for a new service. We'd never mentioned it before. We didn't tell any of the customers about it. We sent out 1 email about this new service, and we sold out for essentially the next 3 years because they were already opening and engaged. They weren't turned off when it switched to a sales email as well. And one of the other tools that we use, so this is a printed piece. This is a way that we get folks into the funnel, is essentially what is the topic sentence for that entire email series. This one, this Treecologist 101, is the top 12 tips. So this is like, of the 12 email series, this is like the topic sentence. And then at the end, it says, if you want to know more, sign up to be to go through the Treecologist 101 series. And then after that, they'll sign up for the newsletter and be entered into all of the other content that we create. But this is an actual, the cost for this is not low because it is a, I think, 16-page booklet, but it is, the return on investment for this is great because not only do people have like a beautiful booklet that they keep around about the brand, but it also is a way to in person enter them into this stream of content. And the other thing is to have fun as well. So every April Fool's Day, we create some other content that is secondary to the brand. So this was in 2021, we created Timber, which is a dating app for trees. And it was so much fun. We filmed a video of Grayson here, who Jacques Lumbert is his character name, was pitching this idea of, trees need soulmates too. And we even created like screenshots of what the UX would look like on the app. But this worked so well that people thought it was actually real. And for a moment, we got our Facebook account canceled because they thought we were like phishing people with a fake dating app. I had to be like, no, it's April Fools and these are trees. We're not actually trying to match trees with each other. So also have fun as well. So the state of email in 2022, I've already talked about this a little bit. Analytics are changing. The data privacy is changing, how things are being tracked. Google Analytics is changing. There are, the metrics aren't always consistent, but if you track your own data month after month and have consistent messaging and timing, then you can also track where you are in that pattern as well. Data attrition is on the rise, which just means more folks are working from home, folks are moving jobs, etc. Pay attention to when you get bounced emails and be sure that you clean your list. There are some tools where you can actually pull your entire list and validate it to make sure that it is clean beyond just whether or not you're getting bounces in your email tool as well. ADA compliance is essential. This used to be an afterthought, but there are definitely places where businesses are getting held accountable for not having ADA compliance. So that can be as simple as alt text descriptions, but also looking at color compliance. So whether or not something is legible or has enough contrast. There are a lot of different tools to test colors and make sure that things are compliant, but at this point it is a necessity, not an add-on. Be authentic. We've seen a massive rise in AI this year, everything from image generation to text generation. I think that it's a great tool to have, and also your audience can start to sort of see through that if it is consistently not generated in your voice. So being authentic is very important. And personalized emails, but not too much. Like add their name and maybe some information you know about them, but don't add all of the information. Or I'm not a big fan of retargeting. There are very few cases where I think it works well, and it's usually like really only like a shopping cart that you left that you keep coming back to, like you've just forgotten to order shoes for your kids or something like that. I think when things are over personalized, it can be a bit too much. So 5 things to avoid. We've essentially gone through the 5 things to do, but 5 things to avoid. Don't sell right away. Don't oversend. Like I said, roughly 3 to 4 emails max a month is great. Don't let your list get stale. Don't forget a clear call to action. Even if you're doing education, still add a call to action at the end, like whatever. It can be a small thing that isn't necessarily always a sale, but some other way for them to stay connected, and don't overcomplicate it. 5 of my favorite email tools. CoSchedule has a subject line tester, which is great. It's free. I don't always use it for the exact words that they suggest, but I use it to test subject lines against each other, like which one is performing better rather than just using their word list. Post Schedule has a headline analyzer. This one is a lot more complicated, but we use this for blog headlines, and this pulls in like what folks are actually searching for right now, keywords, and how to improve as well. So we'll use that for blog posts and for headlines in the newsletter itself. Webaim.org, that's the accessibility checker, one of them that I was talking about. Answer the Public, oh, that was the name of that tool. I don't know what I said. Maybe I called it What Are People Asking For? It's Answer the Public. That circle diagram I showed earlier, that is the tool for finding what people are searching for. And Really Good Emails is great for inspiration. And my 5 favorite design tools are, so Canva for design and layout. I'm sure y'all are familiar with Canva. Those are typically, there aren't very many tools that you can do design and layout of a full email that are separate from the email tool itself. They're often built into, like the email builders are built into the email software. So I wouldn't recommend building the entire email in Canva, but secondary elements. I also recommend having things like you're systematizing your content planning, also systematize the images in your email newsletter as well. Like make all of your images square so that no matter what or how you're cropping it, they're always square and they'll always fall in the same place in your newsletter. There are some tools like BPro where you can do email layout, but it often is difficult to edit back and forth because you're going from code in the email platform back to BPro anytime you have to like edit text, unless you know some HTML code. You could probably do small edits, but that's it. Unsplash is great for photos. Noun Project is great for icons. They're an open source icon site. I think they did just add a premium feature, but you can find most icons through their tool for things like mini infographics, things like that as well. Coolers is great for picking colors. It's Adobe's color palette tool. I think it's Adobe's color palette tool still, but they also help you with creating, there's either color palettes that are available or you can create new ones to pull the hex codes from to add color to your emails. And then if you don't have access to the Adobe Creative Suite, using Pixlr for an online photo editor. So I said that I would leave some time at the end for questions, which I'll open that up now. But I also wanted to mention we are launching, we're calling it Email Marketing VIP Day. And it's essentially, if you're just starting out and you want to know which platform to be on, we create templates, we create your 12 months of content, we go through best practices, dive into your audience, talk about how to track analytics. We're launching, it's just launched. We're sold out for the first quarter, but we have a wait list. If you're interested, it's mieldesignstudio.com/email. And I'm also available. We do packages of consultation hours if you just want somebody to look at your automations or your data or your lists or anything like that. We do those in packs of 3 over a series of months so that we can test data. And feel free to just email me any questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this incredible presentation and for these offerings that you just shared. If anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or drop them in the chat and we can go through them. We had a question come up about open rates and click-through rates and what is considered good.
I think, again, your data, it depends on your list and what your data is in the past. Like, I think there's a point where you plateau and you've reached like the highest level engagement that you can, like 70%, I feel like is the max if you're over a couple hundred people. I think a good open rate, if you're just starting out, is around 30%. And click-through rates have really gone down so much. Like, I mean, lists that we used to get 50% click-through rates have gone down to 3 to 5%. So I wouldn't really gauge on that metric anymore. But if you're at 30%, that's good. 50% is great. 60 to 70% is incredible. And it also, I will say too, varies on industry. Most software tools have a gauge of what is a good rate in your tool as well.
Awesome, thank you. Another question we got was, any thoughts on audio version of emails?
An audio version? Huh. I don't know that I've actually even heard of that. Like adding an audio file. Is the person here who was just asking that?
Yeah, Maggie, if you want to
Yeah.
share
You're-
more details.
Yeah, thanks. The comments on the ADA accommodations brought this up. We had somebody reach out to us who had somebody so we do a weekly email newsletter that people subscribe to. And she was forwarding it to somebody else who apparently has low vision. And she was wondering if we could add a link where you would basically get a read version of the email, like somebody would read it out loud. And then a couple of other people were like, I don't even have the 5 minutes to read the email. And when I do, I love the content. I really wish there was, like, one of my friends said was like a podcast version. Ours is an educational email on women's health. And I know Substack recently started doing audio versions, but I don't know through like any of the other, what are the other folks using? We're using MailChimp for ours.
Yeah,
I hope that helps clarify.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. This is really interesting. So I haven't seen that in MailChimp, Constant Contact, Flowdesk, any of the main ones. It's interesting that Substack did. I'm gonna look into this. Some more.
I think for them, it's the beginning of a podcast platform.
Oh, okay.
If they're looking at it that way. And one of the suggestions that we got was like for the workaround, you could just create the podcast version of the weekly email newsletter.
Okay.
Oh, I see there's a link in the chat. Thank you.
Okay. I think so. Most of the things in terms of accessibility are a screen reader, and email actually works well for this because it's set up in tables, so it's fairly straightforward for a screen reader to paginate through an email. So it's interesting that they're also offering those. But if it is the intro to a podcast platform and they're transitioning to that, that is interesting too. But I do think there is definitely value in creating multiple types of, so we create videos, so having multiple types of content based on how people learn. So if you have the production capacity, adding a podcast, especially if you're creating content that is blog posts and things like that, turning those into, you already have the content. So why wouldn't, if you have the time and capacity, why wouldn't you record it? But from an accessibility standpoint, that's really interesting. Because I know when we design PDFs or websites, it's built into the screen reader, but it would also, should we have recordings of websites and other things as well, and not just emails too? That's a great point. I'm going to look into it more. Thank you for bringing that up.
Amazing. Okay, Laura had a great question. We used to send weekly emails and then switched to a monthly newsletter. Our open rates increased to 50% and up. I thought sending emails more often is better, but the numbers didn't show that. Do you have guidance on how often to send newsletters?
Yeah, I think that is true. I think old school email marketing was send as many emails until your client or reader unsubscribes. But I think once a month consistently is the key. So there's like 2 or 3 emails that I open every day. And then there's a handful of emails that I open every month, because I know when they're coming. So sending them consistently, and also cleaning your lists will help with those numbers too. But I think monthly is better than weekly. Weekly is a lot unless you have something that changes weekly in your business. Unless there is a reason to send it weekly, like Dreamers and Doers comes out weekly because there's always new content and events that are coming up. Like there's a reason to send it out weekly because things are changing, and a monthly digest would be really just too long to read. Am I right that it's weekly? Yeah. So
yes, it is weekly.
It is weekly. Okay. It a little bit depends on your audience and what you're sending, but I think generally monthly is, less work for you, and also your readers will be more engaged. That's a great question.
Okay, Kelly asked, do you send out your newsletter on the 1st of every month or the 15th, first Monday, Tuesday, etc. of each month? Have you seen better opening rates with one or the other?
That's a great question. So the day of the month doesn't matter as much as the day of the week. So typically we sort of stagger when we send them for clients based on our workflow. So we have like first week, second week, third week, fourth week, a variety of clients within those. But the days that are best are Tuesday and Wednesday morning. Monday, everybody's just getting back to their email and their inbox is full. Tuesday and Wednesday are a little bit slower. Sometimes Thursday is okay, but you want to think in terms of response time. If somebody doesn't open an email until Thursday evening, you probably don't want to send replies back on Friday. So Tuesday or Wednesday gives you enough time to have response time within that week and not letting it fall over the weekend. And then timing really varies based on the client, but I found recently that getting an email, if it's a monthly consistent email that readers know that they're expecting, sending it out at like 6 a.m. in whatever their time zone is means that it's in their inbox, hopefully before they're checking email for the day. And then like I always look for my 6 a.m. emails that are like, those are the newsletters that I'm going to be reading for the day as I start my day, and then the other ones I'll sort of get lost in the mix. So 6 a.m. on Tuesday, Thursday are usually the best.
Amazing.
Great question.
If anyone has any other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or unmute yourself. In the meantime, I'm going to share the link to our event feedback form in the chat. We'd love to hear what you thought of today's session, and if you have any ideas for any future sessions. It's fully anonymous, so we love to hear your thoughts and feedback.
And again, if there's a question that comes up that you are thinking about later, I'm always happy to answer questions over email too.
Amazing.
Oh, interesting. Lisa, you heard that evenings are better. Huh. I guess it depends on the client or the type of service. Lisa, was that related to a specific industry?
Can I unmute here?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So I use Kartra, and it says that the best open rates are weekend evenings, which is absolutely the opposite of, but I'm here because I need, more assistance with this. So of course, I'm interested in trying some other options and saying, well, Tuesday and Wednesday mornings, I can't wait to try it.
Is it a leisure-based email, like something that people would be doing on the weekends, like events?
Not necessarily. I own a diabetes education and coaching company. So yes, we might have webinar events and things like that. Maybe people have more time to focus on their health a little bit more on the weekends. I'm not sure. But
yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if too that, I mean, that's more of a B2C or rather than a B2B. You know, B2Bs are
Right.
probably checking. I'm often thinking from a B2B standpoint. So they're
Yeah,
checking
this is
during the
definitely
week.
B2C, and I don't
Yeah.
know, maybe, people aren't checking their personal email first thing in the morning.
Right. They're checking their personal email on the weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah. That is good insight though. And Carta as well. One of the other things I'll say too is that it's Kartra, thank you. It also seems to vary a little bit seasonally. Like right now in general, email marketing November and December is very full because you're getting everything from Giving Tuesday to holiday sales to, so unless we have an actual product, a client that is selling a product, we're a little bit lighter in November and December, and more just trying to find feel-good stories or positive news, a sort of lighter end of year wrap up rather than really pushing for, like, we'll see open rates go down a bit this time of year, which is totally expected because your inbox is very full. And one of the other things about having that, so for the clients that we have printed pieces for, we found, especially since 2020, so many folks moved to digital platforms than they were using before. Email inboxes got really full. I don't know if y'all are experiencing like nonstop email overload. I always am. So thinking about how you can also engage with those same folks with a printed piece, either sending a mailer. Our mailboxes are not full, or are physical on the street. Mailboxes are not full, especially when it's not an election cycle. So even a small printed piece can really engage email as well, so they can work hand in hand. And also thinking about how to get folks even a few times to engage with your email enough so that it moves from the promotions tab to your general tab, because then that just means that they will see it more and more, especially if they use Gmail.
Amazing. So many amazing insights. Thank you so much, Rebekah, for demystifying the email marketing process for us. I loved this collaborative conversation we had today. Thank you everyone for joining and for asking such great questions and for being here today. It's always such a treat to learn alongside one another. I hope everyone has an amazing rest of your day, and we will see you at the next one.